I was so excited for it, and so I'm thinking, but it's a dang Q&A. Let me just stop it.
Yes.
I have stopped.
Don't stop. I was so excited to talk to you about Camp Damascus, actually, because this is one of the things you do. I love everything you said about reclaiming spaces, and I love everything you've said about the absolute virtuosic madness of this book is incredible. It's got it does things in a book you shouldn't really be able to do, which is wonderful. But there's this moment in it where how do I put this without spoilers? Okay, I'm gonna be, if you know, you know, and if you don't, hopefully I won't spoil it for you. But there's Camp Damascus is referred to throughout the first third of the book, and you're not sure. You're waiting for the main character to basically, for the narrative to ramp up and for her to get to Camp Damascus, and suddenly there's this revelation, and it's such a neat. Apart from all the virtuosic madness of the book, that's such good storytelling. It's such a good twist. It's so good. It's such an amazing reveal. To be able to turn the reader's expectations on their head like that. What can we discuss without spoilers? I think why don't we let's talk about Rose, shall we? So how did you come up with her?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, because of my way on the autism spectrum, it's very complicated. I think that what we know about autism and it being a spectrum has changed so much. Even when I was diagnosed, it was decades ago, I was called Asperger's at the time, and now that has kind of been lumped in. It was this experience for me where I was so dang excited when I was diagnosed. I thought this is so cool. Because a bunch of my heroes, David Byrne from Talking Heads, is on the autism spectrum. So I thought, when I learned that about myself, I thought, I'm the coolest club. And I hear a lot of buckaroos talking about being diagnosed, and it's very hard for them and things. And so I kind of thought, well, I shouldn't really talk about it that much because I'm expressing myself in such a wild, unique way. I don't know how much that's going to get convoluted, or buckaroos going to think, every autistic person wears a pink egg over their head or something like that. But what I realized was that moment was so important for me to have David Byrne. And I thought, okay, if I can go out there and say, well, autism is not a tragic way for me. It can be for others. And I'm not going to say that their stories are wrong. That's actually, however you react to this is totally dang valid. But I thought there should be a voice out there saying, this is really, this was great for me. It actually made my life wonderful. I love being autistic. Do you have autistic buckaroos in the crowd? Heck yeah! Proud autistic buckaroos. So I wanted to be a part of that. So I knew I wanted Rose to be on the spectrum. And then when I thought about the character, I thought, gosh, I get all these buckaroos asking, a lot of autistic buckaroos, just kind of asking about what is Chuck really like under the dang mask. And so I decided to write her autism exactly like mine. So the finger counting is my actual stim that I've done since I was a child. The way that she thinks about going to social events and writing note cards before is something that I do. And so if you're ever wondering, well, what's Chuck like under the mask, at least in that part of his life, I'm not a religious buckaroo, I'm agnostic, but as far as my autism, that is exactly who Rose is. So I kind of thought, let's write a character that answers that question. I can say, if you want to know how Chuck's autism is, just look at that character.
I loved her, and I don't think I'm alone either. So love is real, but is evil real?
Wow, that's a great question. Gosh, I don't know. I think as an agnostic buckaroo, what I think I kind of like in where I am at in my trot is saying I don't know more and respecting I don't know within myself as a valid position. I feel like we are so trained to kind of, in a very grand cosmic sense, know everything, or say, you gotta come down on one side, buckaroo. And I kind of think just knowing this experience, I don't know if we can ever know in the big broad version of it. I like to think of it like the wide angle lens and then a little bit in. And I would say my suspicion is in the very, very widest lens possible of I think, therefore I am, questions about God or religion. I think probably not. And then in the 99% lens where you just think about buckaroos on this earth trotting around and you're trying to have a conversation where you can actually talk about things, maybe yes in that context, in like a societal context, and no in the philosophical context. It's probably where I land.
Maybe there are evil deeds, although evil is an entity, isn't it?
That's, yes. But then you start thinking, well, then how do you define an evil deed if there's
Exactly.
no, yes.
And it seems, it's bad, evil begets evil.
I gotta take my own advice and say where I started. I don't know.
I don't know.
This is where I was getting. I started thinking about it and then I go, well, actually, I don't know.
I think as you get older as well, you know different things, and sometimes you know less than you did when you were
Yes.
when you were younger.
Yes.
Growing more and more ignorant, I think, is a great privilege. And there was also, I mean, again, just to the point about evil, there is also a sort of force or an agency which could be considered evil in this book, which later turns out to be indifferent to the human perceptions of good and evil as the ends that are using them. I thought that was a really inspired choice as well. So the setting, because it's Montana, and you are from Montana.
Originally, yes.
Yes. And how did it feel to go back to that landscape of your youth and childhood?
Oh, I very much enjoy it. I enjoy the big open spaces. I'll say I live in the city of devils now, Los Angeles. And I think I mentioned this to you when we were talking earlier. Going to a place where the weather is always pretty dang nice makes me realize, oh dang, did I have seasonal depression for my whole entire life? I just have no idea, and now every day is just so joyous. So it's fun to visit in a fictional book, but I am glad to be where the sun is. I traveled so much. Everything that I say, if you follow Chuck online or any of my ways, you will see that if I say, the example I like to give is if I'm talking about a dog, if I say, I pet a dog today, I might have pet a cat, but it's still all kind of hiding my privacy, but it's all real, it is all actual things that I am going through. And something that is very real is I actually traveled for over a decade, all across the dang country, and saw pretty much every dang state, living like dang Jack Kerouac with a dang pink bag over my head. Not really with the bag, but I traveled so dang much, and I think that's, Montana is a home, but I think my home is actually moving. I think my home is this strange abstract thing.
I think that's a lovely answer.
Yes.
I think your home is where you are. I was wondering about because you were really interesting earlier about the relationship or the similarities between romance and horror. So, but what was the process that led you from erotica to horror?
Wow. I always loved horror. I think that what I like to write, well, gosh, you said that there were things that you don't see in a book a lot in Camp Damascus. And part of that is because I kind of, I don't follow conventional rules of art a lot. I can name a few, and there will be a purpose for this, of kind of things you're never supposed to say as a dang author. Number one is that I don't, a lot of, how many writers are in the ground? Okay, so you're gonna know all of this stuff. A lot of buckaroos talk about the only thing that you should be inspired by is in writing, and I do not read very much. I think my autistic way I start thinking about writing every time I'm reading a dang book. My thoughts spin off, and I can hyper-focus on writing. So I'd say about 95% of what I do is writing, and then I don't read very much, but I'm very inspired by other things like movies and music and paintings and things. And also, I'm going to go back. This is why I complimented your books. You're one of the only dang authors that I just sit down and devour a dang book of. So get all Cat Ward's things books. They're very good. But you're not supposed to say that as an author, that you don't. That's like a golden rule. You're supposed to be dang embarrassed. And number two, you're always supposed to say, if someone says, well, what do you lead with? What drives your story? Is it your plot or your characters? You're supposed to say, just so you know, everyone wants you to say characters. I do neither of those. Message is what I always come to. It is always, what is the point of this? If someone's going to sit down and read my book, what am I going to give them if you've dedicated these hours to me? I would say characters sitting in the passenger seat, probably grooving to tunes and having a good time. But it's always message first. And then my third one is everyone's going to say, and this, oh my gosh, this is a big one. You're always supposed to show and not tell. I like telling, I'm just going to say. Because, especially, I write first person present. And when you think about something, you don't show what you think. If you're writing first person present, you just say, oh, that is what that is. And so that sort of neutral style of just doing that is what I really enjoy. I think there's a time and a place for both. The point of all that is that if there's any creative buckaroos out here thinking, well, I'm doing something wrong, buckaroo, there is no wrong way to make your art. I'm up here, we're up here doing a dang book tour, and this book is doing really dang well, and you know, I'm breaking all these rules. You can make whatever dang rules you want. Don't let anyone come in and tell you, oh, that's wrong, that art is wrong. But there's no wrong art. That was probably the biggest tangent I've ever been on. I didn't know what the dang question was, but the point, regardless of the question, is make whatever heckin' art you want. But as long as it resonates right here, it's gonna resonate out there, and don't even think about those dang rules.
The question was originally about what drew you to horror, but I got a lot.
Holy cow!
No.
Wow, that was the biggest tangent I've ever followed.
It made sense though, because what you're saying, like, horror is a really political art form.
Yes.
Horror is like, it speaks to like justice and gender and power. Like, if you're talking about message first, that makes so much sense.
How did you just, that was exactly my main point. This is why we're buds. Oh my gosh, that was incredible. Yes, that was my point, is horror is very good for a message first.
And you're also right about there's no wrong way. There's just ways of doing things that no one else has made work yet. So be the first to make it work.
Yes, and if you can do that, a lot of the time, I'll say realistically, there's normally kind of a reason that people go down past buckaroos, get kind of lost and stuff. But if you find that, if you chart off one of those courses and it's a new one and it works, the effect that can have is you can everything you do shifts timelines, improves love, but sometimes you can stumble upon something that just knocks everyone over backwards.
Yeah. Also, the reading thing is difficult. It's really, the more I write, the less I read. It's really strange, and I think it's just, I don't know. I think it's just being overwhelmed, spending all day down the mine, and then having to come up and.
I'm loving audiobooks. That's what helps me.
Yes, it's really good. And also, isn't it wonderful as a writer to hear the words given to another person and see what you do with them?
Yes, that is how I read. And when I say read, that's how I read Sundial. Such a dang good audiobook. Whoever did that was amazing.
It's Catherine Fenton. She is amazing. She does lovely sound as well.
Oh, there you go.
Interesting. So, we've done Camp Damascus, and would you consider returning to that world? I know it's early on to just make such decisions. But
well, all of the Nightfire, who's publishing this, bought 2 books from Chuck, and all of my horror writing. There was a novella straight before that. There you go. Speaking of audiobooks, oh my gosh, such a good narrator for straight as well. They are all kind of in the same world. Kind of like
Stephen King.
Exactly like that, yes.
Yeah.
So a lot of the themes, of course, are similar. And yes, in Camp Damascus, in the book that will come after it, it's called Bury Your Gaze. It is.
That's a great title.
Yes, I won't say that was title first, but dang, when I figured out that was the title, I thought, that's just the best queer horror novel title of all time. Yes, so there's crossover things. The events of Camp Damascus are mentioned in Barrier Gaze, but it is not a sequel at all. There's just, I would say, companies and things. And if you're reading Camp Damascus and something kind of, you think, is that a real brand or a real show or a real place? And you look it up on Bing search and it doesn't show up. One, it could be because you're using Bing, but two, it could be because that is a reference to a little Easter egg for something in a later Tingleverse horror novel. There's a lot of this, actually.
There's another Easter egg in Camp Damascus, isn't there, where the movement that Rose's family is part of is the Pine.
Kingdom of the Pine.
Kingdom of the Pine, yeah.
Yes.
In a way, yes. Do we all live in the Kingdom of the Pine?
Well, I actually, so Kingdom, I don't know if there's, this is probably not going to be a spoiler. I will say the sect that Rose is part of, and if you, there's a lot of dang layers in this book, but they're essentially, it's about kind of, do the ends justify the means is maybe the big question, and a lot of that is through the lens of capitalism, and so I will say that Kingdom of the Pine, this is not said in the book, so it's not a spoiler, but because they are very kind of see the godliness in capitalism is kind of their identity. The Pine is literally selling wooden crosses because that is kind of where they develop. So the idea is we are going to worship the material because we are worshiping capitalism. Actually, is kind of the second layer. It's not said in the book, but that's why I chose Kingdom of the Pine.
It seems very appropriate, and it all comes also back to what you were saying earlier about the body. The more you make the body forbidden, the more you incline it towards ownership. If something is forbidden and transgressive, then someone has to own it. It can't be public.
Yes. Well, Captain Ask, it is not an anti-religion book. Is it anti-using religion as an excuse for discrimination and hate book?
I think that's fair.
Yes, but it is also let's see. Wait, now I lost my train of thought. What was the name? What did you just?
I was asking about the Kingdom of the Pine, and then I was talking about the body as transgressive, which
That's
more
what it was. The point I was trying to make is that the church, religion in general, that's kind of what that has been about. At least Christianity for a pretty long time is saying your body is wrong. It's something other than your body. You got to deny your body of everything. And so, I do think that's true with the genre thing, but it goes thousands of years back. Controlling bodies of women, conservative movement. It's all controlling bodies, really.
Horribly topical, really. So, horror. What other genres would you consider other than horror?
Dang, that's a good. Honestly, horror is so ingrained in me, and so is I guess erotica. I always find being able to use the taboo, so sex and violence. Horror and erotica is such a wonderful tool. I've always been drawn to that sort of transgressive side of things. A lot of buzz, I talk about comedy on here, and I guess there's some dang jokes on my sides. It will probably shock a lot of buckaroos. I don't think of Tinglers as comedy. I don't think that I write comedy or am a comedian in any way. I just kind of end up being, I think I have a natural knack for knowing what's going to be funny, so I can kind of maneuver things there, but comedy is never the point of anything that I do. And to speak, I guess, as the opposite of your question, is one thing that I don't think I could ever do because I have tried. Buckaroos have pushed me in this direction. There was maybe a thing, they were talking about a Tingleverse TV show a long time ago, and everyone wanted to do comedy, and that's, when I sit there and try to write to be funny, I can't do it at all. That's not the point of what I do. But if I do something else, I just end up making it real funny. So I don't think I would ever just do comedy, which probably surprises a lot of buckaroos.
I think that makes sense. Do you think that's because it's not comedy per se, but it's about this joyous exhilaration?
Yes.
And the laughter is a response to that, rather than, as you say, there's a difference between laughing at and laughing with. Laughing with is being carried more by someone else's joy.
I gotta bring you on this whole dang book tour, basically just to translate everything that I say. Yeah, I'm just gonna talk for 10 minutes and answer a question, you can say, in 2 sentences, this is what Chuck McDermott will say. Okay, totally get it now.
I don't think you need any help from me, my darling. Right, I think I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to turn it over to you lovely people. So, who's got a question? The question is, how did we come to be on the stage together? Well, I wandered in, needing a sandwich.
Well, okay, well, how did we first... We are both on the same publisher.
Yes, we are. But it started before that, didn't it?
I think it might
I
have.
think it did. I think we just really liked each other online.
Yes.
Yeah, I
That's
think
how I make all my bugs.
Yeah.
Meet them on thing. Well, I meet them on X. Which now sounds like I'm on some very hardcore app.
It's the worst app.
I meet them on
Not
X.
even Michael Myers would go on that.
Yes. But a lot of buds that I know and connections that I've made are just from Bing tweets. You can actually see the way that I got on Bing Nightfire was I wrote Camp Damascus and then I tweeted, I have a horror book, would anyone like to publish it? I just now got my publishing deal. There's the other answer to that is I spent then a decade writing things and building a social media following, but that is not the fun answer. The fun answer is that I tweeted it.
Exactly. Has anyone else got a question? Hi, Eddie.
Ring Camp Damascus, there's lots of lyrics to other modern horror novels, such as Ring Shout, where the KKK uses demons to help their own movement. How did you land on something that high functions without spoilers?
Oh, that's very, very interesting. Okay, well, I will say, because I don't read very often, I was not aware of that, but that sounds very good. It's a great idea. Someone's got to come up with that one. Actually, so I have a lot of in horror. I've just had years of them. I do a lot of my writing in my morning trot up the hill. I walk for an hour and just hike up a hill, and I think most of my story has been probably 2 or 3 months of rolling around ideas, and then I get when I tell it to myself, and then at the time when I can tell it to someone sitting around a big campfire, then I sit down to write it, and then I write a whole novel in about a month. But it's probably 2 or 3 months of thinking of these ideas. So I had an idea for Camp Damascus for a very long time, and then what happened was I didn't know how to do it. Same with actually Straight before that, and I thought I don't. There's so much trauma in the queer community. How do you write for this marginalized community that I'm part of without just giving buckaroos, the trauma that they're experiencing in everyday life? Who wants to read a book where you just re-traumatize? And so because of the genre of horror, I couldn't figure out a way in. And I will say that one of my favorite, biggest influences actually, as a writer, is a filmmaker, Jordan Peele. And the way that Jordan Peele writes horror for the marginalized community that he is part of, I just thought that's the way in is that tone, and so such a big influence for me. Probably my biggest writing influence is David Byrne, but another influence is Jordan Peele. And so honestly, Get Out is probably the biggest influence for Camp Damascus.
That's a wonderful answer. Oh, yes, sorry, there's someone with their hand up back there. Yes, let me come to you because you have lovely family.
Well, like what you just mentioned, Jordan Peele, you said a lot of the media you've taken is more music and movies and such as reading. You also mentioned someone suggested like a Tingle TV series. Either when you were writing Camp Damascus or when you were looking back on the finished product, were you kind of trying to visualize how it would look if it were put onto the screen, or is that something you never?
Oh yes, that's the only way that I write. The question was I visualizing it as a film? When I write novels, and I think the reason that I have a pretty unique tone in my writing, one is probably the autism. Two is because film is so influential to me, it is I write and I pace and I plot like a movie because I want to write for the buckaroos like myself who have a hard time getting through novels. And so I really do, I do pace it, do all the story beats of film, and then that combined with the fact, and I also think of set pieces, which is a very film type thing, that combined with the fact that I only like to write in first person present creates a pretty unique voice on accident. Because in a film, if you pace it that quick, you can jump around the world. Every scene can be in a new place with new characters, but because I write first person present, paced and plotted like a film, I have to create a compelling story from one person's perspective going through this, weaving through this. Actually, I guess in Sundial you jump right in. You have a good solution to that where you kind of jump around, but yeah, so I try to do a sort of film pacing, but all to one character in this sort of like fast, very, like I said, both showing and telling proudly, sort of just narrative that's very easy to read for buckaroos like me who have a hard time with it.
Please.
One of the things that really resonated with me, Damascus, is religious trauma, which I feel like is very common in the queer community. I really appreciated how there were a lot of different responses ways people dealt with trauma related to religion. What message do you want to give to folks who in the queer community who have experienced religious trauma?
Wow, what message do I want to give to folks in the queer community that have experienced religious trauma? I will say that, like I said, it is not an anti-religion book, and that's probably actually why there are so many perspectives included, is because, well, I say this a lot. Write and create from a place of love is kind of the advice that I always give any buckaroos who want to know. And sometimes that's hard to quantify. Camp Damascus is a perfect example. If I wasn't writing from a place of love, I think the book would turn out very different. Because in the book, there are different perspectives. There's queer buckaroos have all been through the same experience with religion, who have different reactions. Some of them turn away completely. Some of them are still devout Christians, and those are still the good characters. So I think that that it was kind of important with the book. And to directly answer the question, what do you say to buckaroos that have been through religious trauma? I would say, that is, I don't know how I could say it, with all of that gray area that I just talked about, there's kind of no gray area there, and that's that none of that trauma is your fault, and you deserve so much better, and that you're a wonderful, beautiful person exactly the way that you are. So, gray area in the art, pretty firmly saying you're a wonderful person, and you don't deserve that to it in the concrete world.
Yes, shall we have you in the glasses? Sorry, I'm very short-sighted as well, so I'm like peering.
The question is if I was to not write first person present, how would my approach change? There's a couple ways. I have written screenplay format, which I'm currently not doing right now. And part of that was for the show, so that is not first person present. I enjoy that. I will also say, this is I'm going to give a very big, this is an exclusive barrier gaze. I don't like to talk about my art before it comes out. That barrier gaze is first person present, but there are sections of it that are screenplay format in the book. It's about a screenwriter in Hollywood, and when it comes out, everyone will think, oh wow, this is really current. And I'm gonna say, I wrote this 2 years ago, and now everything that I said is literally happening. Pretty dang wild. And I also wrote Choose Your Own Adventure books, which are, oh yes, look at that. And those are all second person, which is very strange to write it. That's all you. And so you say, this happens to you. Which was so fun that I actually think that if I was really gonna just say, I'm gonna do something different than first person present, I think it'd be very fun to write a whole horror novel in second person.
Yeah, that would be insane. And worthy of your talents. Okay, I think this is our last question. Oh, yes, please.
That's a great question. Okay, question was basically about how did I create the monsters and kind of the inspiration for that in Camp Damascus. Mention of Hellraiser. I will say Hellraiser and Event Horizon were big ones for me in kind of, gosh, I really don't want to spoil anything. I'm just going to say the perspective of the book, which is kind of, I think, a unique one. This is not a spoiler. Maybe. Okay. I think that I treat hell as though it's a real place, and a lot of horror doesn't do that. It keeps it very abstract. And I thought, what if you did a religious horror book where these were all real places and real animals, species? And so I think Hellraiser does that. I think that Event Horizon does that. That was part of it. And then I also knew, I remember very specifically thinking, well, I definitely can't make these demons be like Cenobites. Because it's kind of a little too dang similar, and that's been done, and it's been done very well. And thing that I came to was actually back, and if you've read this will make sense, I'm gonna keep it vague. So much of this book has to do with capitalism that I thought, okay, the appearance of these demons is going to show their place on a capitalistic kind of ladder, if that makes sense. So that's why the demons are appear the way that they are.
As do we all. Thank you so much, Chuck. And yeah, I think everyone will join me in giving Chuck an enormous
So as we talked about, I'm sure you recall, we're gonna let Chuck and Kat escape first. Yee. Okay, that's what keeps them in their seat. All right, perfect. Yes, great. Go, Chuck, go. Woo. Okay, great. Thank you guys so much. And then, Matthew, where are you? Okay. I think we're settled. Okay, so back row of standing room folks, you get to be first, so I'll have you, there's Matthew, yellow blazer. Matthew is going to lead that back row of standing room people to the front of the signing line,